So I've got Adrian Kane with me with Atmos International. We're going to talk a little bit about the API Pipeline Conference and what we're seeing. So what's your key takeaway so far from the Pipeline Conference?
Well, it's just so great to be back in person and to see your customers again and to meet old friends like yourself, and just really great to be back in person.
So what did you learn? What was your key takeaway from the presentation this morning, the keynote about the energy transition?
Well, it's something I've been very interested for a long time. Is that I just don't see how how oil and gas is just going to be replaced by batteries and by electricity when we're not building power stations, and you still need power. So it was very interesting to see all the facts and figures, because you can think about those things, but actually having all the details to hand was really interesting.
Well, it was good to have an engineer with an engineer's mind kind of break down the numbers about this could probably work and this probably can't work.
Yeah, definitely. That's part of the problem, is the engineers never get asked for what the policy decision should be.
Well, that's true. That's certainly true. So, what I took away from it, I like the comment about everybody's talking about batteries and we need more batteries, but nobody really has a concept of how many more batteries we would need to do some of the things people are talking about. Just like all the batteries and all of the Teslas that have ever been made could power, I don't remember exactly.
3 minutes.
3 minutes in Los Angeles or something
Yeah.
that. It's like, that's a lot of batteries and not a lot of power.
No, it would take all the lithium on Earth, I think, and just to do it. I actually talked to a guy about getting a Tesla Powerwall.
Yeah.
And one of the things about those is they can only run one circuit. So you would only run your kitchen appliances off it. And even then, if you do run any of those high users of power, it's only going to last 5 to 10 hours.
That's not good. We're in Savannah, Georgia, and I can tell you they're not running air conditioning off the batteries today.
No. And I actually looked into it. I thought I could come up with a great idea of putting like solar panels on top of a hot tub.
Right.
Because the hot tub takes a lot of power and the lid gets hot in the sun. But when I did the math, I would have needed to cover like my entire street in solar panels just to run a hot tub.
Well, there was, I think the other thing that kind of more on a serious, well, I guess that's all a serious note, but more to the point that the keynote was making, he talked about this transition and about its inevitability. And one of the things I thought that he did really well is he talked about the transition from about acid rain in the 70s and the things that happened in coal power production to clean all that up. And he used a couple of other examples of big transitions we've done in the past. And this is basically the same thing. And people are going to demand it. It's inevitable. We're going to have to decarbonize. But his point was oil and gas is going to be a big part of that decarbonization. It's just how do we do it?
Yeah, I mean, natural gas is actually the next clean fuel. Because what you're going to do is you're going to replace coal-fired production all around the world with natural gas, which is much cleaner. Now, obviously, it's not zero carbon, right, but it's an awful lot cleaner than coal, for example. And we've kind of already done that in the U.S. As we've much more natural gas-fired power stations now than coal.
So here's the trick question. I told Adrian I wasn't going to ask him a hard question, but this might be a hard question. So I may have fibbed a little bit, but. So he talked about, for the sustainability of the hydrocarbon economy, which is required to meet the power requirements that we have. He talked about we're going to have to do carbon capture, carbon transportation, and carbon sequestration. So that means we're going to have CO2 pipelines. So is Atmos doing leak detection on CO2 pipelines?
Yeah, we have, I've quoted a lot of it recently, but we actually had a project in Canada about 5 years ago. And so it's not a challenge really, or it's not a big challenge for leak detection, having CO2, but it's almost all dense phase CO2, so it's liquid. But there's not really much point to try to transfer it as a gas because you'd have very little throughput at that pressure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I've had some conversation about the economics and viability of gas as a mechanism, CO2 gases transport versus supercritical. One of the big reasons they do supercritical is it gets the water out of the line, and with gas you get the water in the line, and water and CO2 makes carbonic acid, and that eats metal.
Yeah.
Another little factoid for engineers that know how things actually work. All right, well look, great to see you here, and thanks for coming by to talk to us.
Pleasure, Russell. Pleasure, thank you.